What I'd like to ask you is, can anybody take a guess at what my artwork is all about? Maps of?
World. To the left is a map, I don't know.
Uh-huh.
Like some kind of mechanism.
Yeah, so somebody recognized Madagascar. That's encouraging. Yeah, we have basically just Africa and then North and South America. I've been looking for a prop for this speech, and I can't find it. What I want is one of those. Remember when you were a kid and they had those? When I was a kid, they were wooden. If you're young, they were cardboard or plastic. Those puzzles that had like 7 pieces, and they were the continents, and you. That's what I want. I can't find one of those to save me unless some fine art wood major made it, and they want, you know, $500-600 for it, and I'm not going to do that for a lousy Toastmaster speech. I've been through catalogs. I'm online. I'm all over the place. I can't find it. So what we have there is basically Africa and South America is what we're interested in, and a name, Alfred Wegener. Anybody? Anyone? No, nobody's heard of Alfred Wegener. Okay. He was German. Very good. And he was not only German, he was a trained meteorologist. And most of you should know that's a weatherman. He was also a trained, but not as primary, as a paleontologist and a botanist. Alfred Wegener was born in 1880. And things were pretty unknown in the scientific community in the 1880s. But he was a brilliant kind of guy. And when he was a kid growing up in Germany, he discovered through one of these puzzles that he had that I was just talking about, that, and I'm sure all of us have discovered this at one time or another, hey, you know what? South America and Africa fit together. He discovered that as like a 4 or 5-year-old kid. And he was so interested by this that he took the continents, the land masses of the world, and he took his puzzles and he started finding out how they fit together. And he discovered that India actually fit on the other side of Africa, and that it had apparently broken off and slammed into Asia, in the process of doing that, creating the Himalaya mountains. And it was obvious to him that Madagascar came off and all that other good sorts of things. Well, among his trips to do meteorology, he would go to places like Greenland and the South Pole and all kinds of adventuresome places. He would also spend all of this time with this theory which he called continental drift, and the idea of a supercontinent, which was all the land masses on Earth at one time being together. And he actually coined the term Pangaea for this supercontinent. Now, as Alfred is talking about all of these things, what is the world's, and I mean the world's, Alfred was out there on a limb by himself, what is the world's scientific community saying about Alfred? He is nuts. He needs to be locked up in an asylum. He's certainly not a scientist. This guy is he's gone. Forget about him. And that's what everybody said about Alfred Wegener. Well, Alfred wasn't satisfied with his kid toys. As he got older, he started developing the paleontology that I talked about, and he went to places where he felt that continents had fit together, and he looked at mostly plant paleontology on both sides. And lo and behold, they matched up. So he started studying geology, and he noticed that the geological features in Africa fit the geological features in South America where they put together. And he went to the scientific community and said, look, you guys have been laughing at me for a long time, but I have this evidence that shows that these were once together. Eventually, during his lifetime, they discovered a thing called the Mid-Atlantic Ridge. If you would picture a line that follows the coast of South America and Africa, going halfway between the Atlantic, that's a mountain range that's right on that ridge. And he, using that evidence, he said, look, not only do the continents fit together, but this mountain range fits right in line with everything too. If we were to move these continents back together over the mountain range, it would be a perfect fit. Not the scientists. Every scientist on the globe laughed at Alfred. He was the laughingstock. In the 1930s, Alfred Wegener went to Greenland, and he was doing a meteorological expedition in Greenland. And we're pretty sure he died, but since they never found him, we, I guess, can't be completely sure. But if you've ever been lost in Greenland, you know that his chances were not good. I went to Greenland when I was in the Air Force, and they told me, in the vulgar terms of military guys, there was a beautiful Scandinavian broad behind every tree. They were absolutely correct. The sad part is there were absolutely no trees. What ended up happening is Alfred dies, goes to his grave, a ridiculed man. In the 60s, a nuclear bomb was lost off of an airplane in the ocean by the Russians. And the United States said, you know what, we want this because we want to see what they're doing. So they went to Howard Hughes, and they started, Howard Hughes had a company called Glomar, Global Marine. And they said, Howard, we want a boat that will be able to retrieve from the bottom of the ocean this nuclear device. And they built the Glomar Challenger, which is a big freighter with a hole in the middle of it and a big derrick that comes down so you can go under a bridge, but comes up so that you can be over the hole. And with that, they recovered this nuclear bomb. And then they said, you know, we've got this ship that was built for one purpose, and we need to find something else to do with it. So they started taking core samples on either side of the mid-Atlantic ridge. And what they discovered is the age of the rocks a half mile from the mid-Atlantic ridge on both sides was the same age. And a mile, it was even older, but it was the same age. And 10 miles, it was older still. So the further away from the ridge you got, the older the rock got, but on either side of the ridge, they corresponded to the same age. Now the scientists said, well, you know, I guess we can't really laugh at Alfred anymore. Actually, they forgot about Alfred, and they just came up with, you know what, these used to be together. And this is the way it is. These continents are spreading apart. And they sort of took credit for it until somebody said, well, wait a minute, remember Alfred that you guys all laughed at? Yeah, he told us that like 50 years ago. And Alfred was proven to be, by today's scientific thinking, absolutely correct. Continental drift is accepted as a fact. Seaforth spread is accepted as a fact. And the idea of Pangaea, which they used his terminology, the supercontinent, is absolutely a scientifically accepted fact. The moral of the story is, just because you're bucking the whole world, and just because the whole world you're bucking are all of the scientists who have graduated from all of the prestigious universities and are all considered to be the tops in their fields, if you've done the research, if you know what you're talking about, if you're not just making things up, but if you actually did the work, you check the plants, you check the minerals, and you know you're right, stick by your guns, because you're probably right. Mr. Speech-a-thon.